statements of objectives and criteria of performance. Some systems of writing performance objectives require the inclusion of a criterion of performance in the objective. The objective statements do not always need to include performance criteria, such as how many times or how accurately a task must be performed. There are two reasons why a designer might wish to avoid including the criterion statement in the objective. The first one is variability in criteria. Different types of skills or tasks require different criteria. For example, a prerequisite skill might require a higher standard of performance than one that is not essential for subsequent learning. The second one is focus on instructional planning. Including criteria at the objective, writing stage can be distracting since criteria are more relevant to assessment, which come later in instructional planning. The purpose of objectives. Objectives are written to communicate the intent of instruction unambiguously, while it is ideal to include all 5 components such as situation, learn capability verb, object, action, and constraints. It is acceptable to omit some components if the intent is still clear. For example, states the names of the 50 states in the United States of America. At first glance, this statement appears clear and straightforward. It defines the task naming the 50 states and uses a specific learning capability verb, states. However, even though the statement seems clear, it assumes certain details that are not explicitly mentioned. The first one, it is implied that this task occurs in a classroom setting but does not explicitly state it. The second one, it assumes that the task is initiated by a verbal question or similar prompt. And the third one, while states is clear as a verb, it leaves open how the response will be communicated. And the fourth, the objectives does not specify whether 100% accuracy is required or if a margin of error is acceptable. But why this objectives is still acceptable? Because despite leaving some components open to interpretation, this objective is acceptable because its intent is still easily understood. The focus is on the learner's ability to recall and state all 50 status. In practical application, an educator or instructional designer might choose to specify additional components for clarity, but it is not strictly necessary unless ambiguity leads to confusion. There are so many examples to show how the 5 components format can be used in a number of different subject areas to make vaguely stated objectives more specific, such as in science instruction, an example from English literature, an example from social studies. Alright, I think that's all from me. Next to my friend.
Alright, here I will explain about using objectives in instructional planning. Okay, so if the instructional objectives is determined in the way described earlier, then the purpose revolves in the nature of the detailed instructional process. This is in turn reflect the detailed characteristics of what is learned. To be more complete, first let's discuss the objectives in instruction. Instructional objectives are an important